You don't move to Iran to fall in love. You move to Iran because you're 27 and you have a master's degree in international studies that your parents paid too much for, a LinkedIn full of internships that led nowhere, and a quiet, suffocating feeling that you have been building a life according to a blueprint someone else drew. You are not brave. You are just restless, which in your late 20s looks close enough to brave that people can't tell the difference. You get a position with a cultural exchange NGO working on a joint academic program between an American university and the University of Tehran. The job exists inside a narrow window off diplomatic thaw. There's a desk for you in Tehran. There's a stipend. There's a 2-year contract and a stack of paperwork and a mother who stands in the kitchen and asks you, 3 separate times, if you have thought about this. You have thought about it. You have also not fully thought about it. You land at Imam Khomeini International Airport in February. The air is cold and smells like diesel and something floral underneath it that you can't name. Women adjust their hijabs in the reflection of the terminal windows and you adjust yours for the first time in public and it slips, and a woman next to you, a stranger, reaches over and fixes it without being asked. No comment, just fixes it. You file that away. It will matter later. Tehran is not what anyone told you. Not what the news told you, not what the travel warnings told you, not what your Iranian-American co-worker back in New York told you, though she came closest. It is enormous. 14 million people moving through wide boulevards and canyon-like expressways with the Alborz Mountains sitting above the smog to the north like a reminder that something permanent exists. The city runs on noise and traffic and chai and conversations happening at a volume that suggests everyone is arguing but nobody is angry. You are overwhelmed in a way that feels productive. Like something in you is finally being used. Your apartment is in Tajrish, in the north of the city. 2 rooms. A kitchen with a gas stove that requires a specific technique to light. A window that looks onto a courtyard where an old woman hangs laundry every morning at 7 and judges the pigeons openly. The rent is the equivalent of $600 a month. For Tehran, that's manageable. For your NGO stipend, it's a chess game. You learn to shop at the Tajrish Bazaar, where the produce is extraordinary and the vendors negotiate with the warm aggression of people who consider it a form of hospitality. You buy saffron by the gram and feel briefly like someone who has their life together. You meet Dariush at a conference on cultural heritage preservation at the University of Tehran in your 4th month. He is presenting a paper on the restoration of historic caravanserais in Yazd province. He is precise at the podium and then completely disarmed the second someone asks a question he thinks is interesting. You ask one. Pauses. He looks at you like you've interrupted something he was already thinking, and gives you an answer that takes 6 minutes, and covers 2 tangents and ends with a question back at you that you don't expect. You give him an answer that takes 4 minutes. The room has moved on. Neither of you notices. He gets your contact for follow-up on the program. He follows up. The follow-up covers the program for 40 minutes and then nothing professional for the next 2 hours. You schedule a second meeting. You don't talk about the program at all. He's 34. An architect by training who shifted into heritage conservation because he says, with the specific exhaustion of someone who has made peace with an old grief, it felt more honest than building new things in a country where the relationship between past and future is never simple. His family is from Isfahan. He has lived in Tehran for 9 years. He has a shelf of poetry books that are not decorative. He reads Hafez the way some people read the news, looking for something that explains the day. He is serious, not cold, serious. There is a weight to how he listens, like your words are being placed somewhere rather than just heard. You are used to conversations where you're being waited out. This is different. It takes you 6 weeks to identify what's different, and when you do, it unsettles you, because you are not in Tehran to feel this. You are in Tehran for a 2-year contract. You are not in Tehran to feel this. You fall into something slow and deliberate. Coffee near Dangeju Park where vendors sell second-hand books on the sidewalk, and Dariush always stops whether he needs a book or not. Walks through the old neighborhood of Audligen where he shows you things no guidebook lists because most guidebooks were written before anyone thought to look. A bathhouse that became a tea house, a door in a wall that opens onto a courtyard you'd never know existed. A mosaic above a shop entrance that's 400 years old, and the shopkeeper has never once been asked about it. He shows you how to see the city from underneath its surface. The city becomes layered. More real. More like somewhere that could hold you if you let it. He is careful. You have to understand that. Not guarded. Careful. He asks your opinion before heifers his. He checks in. Not obsessively, but with regularity, the way someone does when they've learned the cost of assuming. His previous relationship ended because the woman decided, eventually, that Tehran was something she was visiting and not living. When she left cleanly, and took a version of him that he has never mentioned by name but which you understand is present in the way sometimes pauses before committing to something. You don't push. You recognize the engineering. You date for 10 months before he takes you to Isfahan to meet his parents. The drive from Tehran takes 4 hours on the highway that cuts south through the high plateau. The landscape is brown and vast and occasionally interrupted by a village that looks like it grew from the earth directly. You arrive as the light goes golden over the Zayanda River, and he watches your face when you see the Kaju Bridge for the first time, illuminated, reflected in the water, and you don't speak for 2 full minutes. He smiles and says nothing. He has been waiting to show you this. His mother is small and warm and has made enough food for an occasion involving 12 people, which is her way of saying you matter without having to say it plainly. She corrects your Farsi twice, laughs at your pronunciation, and by the end of dinner is teaching you words she's decided you need and testing you while you help with the dishes. His father is retired, a man of few words and particular opinions, who asks you 3 questions over the course of the evening. What do you make of Iran, the real Iran, not the idea of it? Why heritage work? And what does your family think of where you are? You answer honestly all 3 times. He nods at the first, smiles slightly at the second, and says nothing about the third, which you understand later is its own kind of answer. Dariush holds your hand on the drive back through the plateau and says his mother already asked, when you're coming back. You say, what did you tell her? He says, I told her I'd ask you. And you think, this is someone who checks before he assumes. You think, I am in serious trouble. He proposes in the apartment in Tajrish on a Thursday evening in March. No performance. The gas stove is going. There's a pot of ash reshta on the burner because you've been trying to make it 4 weeks and tonight it finally worked. He sits across from you at the small kitchen table and says he wants to marry you and wants to say it plainly, because he doesn't think love should be packaged as a surprise. He has a ring. Simple. He bought it at the Tehran Bazaar from a jeweler researched for 3 weeks because that's who he is. You say yes before he finishes the sentence. You both cry a little, which neither of you planned. The ash reshta gets slightly overcooked. It's the best meal you've ever had. You call your mother from the bedroom. It's 10 a.m. in Ohio. She cries. She asks 4 questions about safety. She asks 1 question about love. And your answer to that one is the only one that quiets her. She says she'll come. She comes. The wedding is in Isfahan. His family's choice. Yours too, actually, because you have seen what Isfahan does with light and you want to be married inside it. The ceremony is in a garden near Nagshi Jahan Square. The kind of space that makes you understand why Persians wrote so much poetry about gardens, because a garden in this country is not decoration. It's an argument about paradise. Your mother wears a hijab for the first time and his aunt adjusts it for her without comment, the same way that stranger at the airport adjusted yours on your first day. Your father and his father sit next to each other at the dinner and communicate through food appreciation and raised glasses of dew. Later both describe it as one of the better conversations they've had. Your mother and his mother are inseparable by the second day. They video call each other for years. You look at Dariush across the table and he is watching the 2 families navigate each other with an expression you can only describe as careful happiness. Like joy he doesn't want to jinx. You recognize it. It's how you've been looking at this country since the woman at the airport fixed your scarf without making it a moment. The NGO contract ends. You transition to a consulting role. Dariush's firm gets a restoration project in Kashan, a historic hammam, and some weekends you drive there and walk through the old city and eat at places that have fed people for 2 centuries. You find a larger apartment in Narmak. A real kitchen. A room Dariush uses for drafting. A window box where you grow herbs badly but persistently. You are building something. You don't have a name for it yet. Feels like it might last. Then Shiren is born. There is nothing that prepares you. People say it changes everything and you nod because that's what you do with clichés. Then you're in the hospital in Tehran and Dariush is holding your hand, with a stillness you will remember for the rest of your life, and then there is a sound and then there is a person. A whole entire person who was not here before and is now here forever. Shirin. She weighs 3.1 kilograms. She has Dariush's dark eyes and your nose and an expression of total bewilderment at existing that makes the nurse say, in Farsi, she's already thinking. Dariush laughs. It's a laugh you've never heard from him before. Something freed. You don't sleep for 3 months. His mother comes from Isfahan. She takes the night shift the way someone does who raised children alone for stretches and has calibrated to what a new mother needs before being asked. His father comes the second week and holds Shiren once, both hands, with a concentration so complete it looks like prayer. He looks up at you and nods. Something in his face is different. The questions are over. Shiren at 7 months grabs your hair and does not release it for what feels like a geological period. You sit there. You let her. Shiren at 1 year walks 6 steps across the carpet in Narmak and lands against Dariush and looks up at him with an expression that says she knows this is impressive and requires acknowledgement. He gives her acknowledgement. He gives her everything. You develop a bedtime ritual. A book in both Farsi and English. A collection of Persian folktales with illustrations that Dariush found at the Tajrish Bazaar the week Shiren was born. You know the voices. Dariush leans in the doorway sometimes and watches in a way that makes you feel like you have gotten something exactly right. Shiren falls asleep on the same page every time. You keep reading to the end because stopping in the middle still feels wrong. Even when the audience is unconscious. You don't know yet why this detail is going to matter. Friday mornings become the center of the week. Nobody has to be anywhere. Dariush makes noon paner, the kind that takes patience. You make American coffee, which he has never fully endorsed but tolerates. Shiren sits between you and rearranges everything within her reach systematically, like a very small urban planner. You walk to the park. She points at pigeons with maximum urgency. Dariush carries her on his shoulders and she grabs his hair and he pretends to negotiate with her about it and she laughs, and the laugh sounds surprised like happiness ambushed her. You are not building a life anymore. You are inside one. Fit. Then the news changes. Not your news. The world's. You have been watching the tension build the way you watch a sky before a storm. You have lived in Iran long enough to understand that this country's relationship with the rest of the world is never simple and never static. That every period of relative calm exists inside the memory of what replaced it last time. You have read the statements. You have watched the escalations. You have had the late-night conversations with Dariush that start practical and end with both of you quiet in a way that isn't emptiness but isn't certainty either. And then it stops being background. Your NGO suspends operations. The embassy issues an advisory. Then a stronger advisory. Then the language that people who work in international spaces learn to read like weather. And you have learned to read it and now you cannot stop. Flights rerouting. Airspace conversations. Consular updates that use words like deteriorating and evolving situation in the tone of people who have already made the calculation they're pretending not to have made. Your mother calls every day. She uses a voice you haven't heard since childhood. The one from before you knew she was afraid of things. Dariush is not panicked. He is the opposite of panicked, which is its own kind of frightening because in a serious man the opposite of panic is not calm. It is control. And control is what you use when the alternative is unacceptable. He comes home one evening and sits across from you at the kitchen table and says they need to talk about options. His voice has the quality of someone who has already finished the thinking and is now doing the courtesy of including you in the conclusion. He says, you and Shiren should go to the United States. Not forever. Not necessarily. But now. While the windows are open. Before open becomes complicated. You say, I'm not leaving without you. He says, my work is here. My family is here. My exit is not the same as yours. You say, she needs her father. He says she needs to be safe. You say, what about what you need? He doesn't answer that for a long time. What follows is not a fight, because you have been married long enough to know the difference between fighting and the thing that happens when two people are both right, and it doesn't help. You talk for 4 nights. Dariush researches visa pathways. You call a lawyer. You call your mother. You walk around the apartment at 2 a.m. with Shiren asleep against your shoulder and look at the life inside it. The draft table with the Kashan project drawings, the herbs on the window box, the folk tale book on the shelf, the kitchen where you finally mastered ash reshta. And you try to understand how something so solid can require this kind of decision. There is no villain in this conversation. He is not pushing you away. You are not abandoning him. You are two people trying to protect the same thing from opposite sides of an impossible geometry. You leave on a Tuesday morning. Imam Khomeini International. Dariush carries Shiren through the terminal because she won't let goof him. At the gate, he puts her in your arms. She reaches back for him immediately and says baba in the voice that isn't quite a word yet, just a shape her mouth learned before language did. Holds her one more time. He doesn't let go until she gets curious about a plane outside the window and cranes toward it. Because children are merciful that way. They give you the exit. He looks at you. You look at him. The things you don't say in that moment are the weight of 4 years. A city that let you in. A kitchen in Narmak. A hammam in Kashan. A garden in Isfahan where you were married inside light, that a daughter with his eyes and your nose and a laugh that ambushes her. He says, call me when you land. You walk through the gate. You are in Ohio for 3 months before 3 months becomes 5. And 5 begins to stop feeling temporary. Your mother is in love with Shiren in a way that rearranges her daily life without complaint. Shiren adapts the way children do, with a completeness that is miraculous and quietly devastating, because adaptation in a 2-year-old means she is already building the new geography, which means the previous one is becoming something she'll have to be told about rather than something she remembers. Dariush calls every night at 9 Tehran time. Noon 30 in Ohio. Shiren sits in your lap and talks to the screen with total confidence. He makes faces. She makes faces. You watch and smile, and after she's in bed you stay on the call for another hour, and sometimes you don't talk at all. Just stay on the line because presence is presence even when it's a screen and 10 time zones. The visa situation is complicated. His work visa has conditions. The political situation has conditions. The conditions have conditions. You speak to 3 immigration lawyers. You file paperwork that generates more paperwork. Dariush is patient the way he is patient about everything, with a stillness that you know by now is not passivity but is, in fact, a form of effort. He says every time you apologize for the process, I'm not going anywhere. The phrase, over time, starts to carry a weight neither of you intended. His firm loses a contract in month 6. International partnerships suspended in the fallout from the regional situation. He finds smaller work. He doesn't complain. He sends you a photo of a doorway he's restoring in South Tehran, a wooden frame so old it's almost black. He writes, 400 years. Still holding. You know he means more than the doorway. You find a therapist in Ohio who works with cross-cultural families. She is the first person Hodoasant ask you to explain how this happened or suggest, gently, that you must have known the risk. You didn't know. You knew the risk of everything except the specific risk that got you. That's how it always is. You build in good faith, and the structure that was meant to hold you turns out to be designed for someone else's life. She asks what you miss most. You think about it for a long time. You say the Fridays. She nods. You say, the way the city smelled in spring, something floral you never identified. She nods again. You say, the feeling of being inside something old and layered and real. Not on the surfacey fit. She puts her pen down and says, you built a life. You didn't visit one. Shiren at 2.5 speaks Farsi and English with a serene disregard for linguistic boundaries that children have before someone teaches them there are boundaries. She calls her grandmother in Isfahan Maman Bozorg on video calls and her grandmother in Ohio Grandma with equal ease. She is building her own layered thing. You go back to Tehran for 2 weeks in autumn when a window opens. Your mother watches Shiren. You step off the plane and the city is the city and also different. The way a room is different when someone has rearranged it while you weren't looking. Dariush is at arrivals with flowers, which he never does. He says, I panicked. The apartment in Narmak is the same. The herbs on the window box are gone. He started something new there. Small pots he's been less attentive to than he intended. The folk tale book is on the shelf. The Kashan drawings are still on the draft table, curled at the edges. The gas stove still needs its specific technique. You cook ash reshta together. It's better than either of you has made it alone. You talk about everything at the kitchen table. What is possible? What is not? What the timeline might look like. What the window looks like from his side and from yours and from the inside of a life that exists in two places and is therefore partially in neither. He is not resigned. You're not hopeless. But there is something at the table with you that you don't name and both of you feel it. The weight of a life being held together across distance by two people who refusito let it stop, but who are also tired in the way that love does not cure. Love is not a cure. Love is a reason. The work is still yours to do. You fly home. Shiren runs to you at the door and the collision of her body into your legs is still the best thing that happens to you all week. Dariush calls at 9 Tehran time. You sit on the couch in Ohio and talk to the screen. Outside the window it's the kind of autumn dark that smells like leaves and something cooling. Somewhere in Tehran it's past midnight. He's at the kitchen table with tea he's forgotten to drink. There are documents on both our laptops. There is a folder on your computer labeled Documents that has grown to 47 files. There is work being done. Paperwork filed. Plans made. The window is still open. It has not closed. And somewhere in the apartment, in a bedroom in Ohio, there is a 2-year-old girl who speaks 2 languages without trying and calls 2 women grandma and fell asleep tonight with a folktale book under her arm because she dragged it to bed and nobody had the heart to move it. On the fridge in Ohio there is a drawing she made last week. House. Son. 3 people. You asked her who they were. She pointed to each one. Me. You asked her why the sun has so many lines. She said because it's happy. You said how happy? She said the most happy. You leave the drawing on the fridge. You have never been able to take it down. You don't think about why. You know why. Your mother says, you should have come home sooner. She means it as relief. It lands like a verdict. As if Tehran was a season. As if Dariush is a story with a clean ending. As if the drawing on the fridge is something to explain away rather than something to orient your entire life around. You can't explain it to anyone who hasn't lived it. What it means to love a place and a person whose country is never just a country but a geopolitical fact that the world has opinions about. And those opinions come with consequences you absorb in your body. What it means to build something real in a place the news tells everyone is impossible. What it means to have built it anyway. And to be right. The building was not a mistake. The distance is not the end of the story. You have a daughter who is proof. You have a husband at a kitchen table in Tehran with cold tea and 47 shared documents and plans he is making and calling you at midnight his time because that is who he is. The man who checks before he assumes, who finishes what he starts, who stood at an airport gate and said, not don't go, not stay, not this is too hard, just call me when you land. So you call him when you land. Every time. You call him. You're still calling. That's not a chapter you close. That's the whole story. And it isn't finished.